All right, guys, we are going to be running a DraftKings Week 4 first look for the NFL season. Can't believe it's already Week 4. Can't believe it's almost the end of September, and this slate is going to take place in October, Josh. This, again, is the first time that we are seeing this slate. We did the FanDuel Week 4 look yesterday. That'll be up on YouTube as well as this one in the coming hours here. So, what do you think? What do you think of this DraftKings Week 4 slate in comparison to what we covered yesterday on the FanDuel First Look?
Yeah, really haven't gotten too much of a chance to look at it. I'm excited to break it down with you, though. I am excited to see maybe does this play the Naeem Hines news play into this slate because Hines is priced at 4,900, and the 2 weeks that he's been without Mac, he scored 14 DraftKings points and 18 DraftKings points. So I can't wait to talk about the Naeem Hines play, potentially the Marlon Mack play, and yeah, let's get into it.
Perfect. Yep, I think it's going to be. I was hoping it would be a spot that we could talk about. It definitely will be against Miami here in Florida. So let's talk about the quarterback position first. And starting at the top, we have Patrick Mahomes against Philly. We saw Dak Prescott do very well against this defense last night. A little bit, the Philly defensive line was able to put on some pressure at times. Hargraves was an absolute monster. Kansas City dealing with some offensive line issues. Patrick Mahomes, Josh, looked like he struggled out, kind of scrambling out of the pocket for the first time in what I think to be this season as well as in previous years. He just looked kind of lost at home the other day. I know that we talked about Josh Allen's spot, but any worries for Patrick Mahomes and how he looked the other day?
I'm not going to say worries necessarily. I think it was just probably an off game for that KC team. I think this could potentially be a better spot. I know that Philly team did rush the passer a little bit. That defensive line definitely didn't look bad. We saw that big touchdown for Fletcher Cox at the beginning of the game. But Mahomes, I think, will end up being just fine in this spot, and he should be able to torch that secondary. So I like Mahomes here. I'm definitely not going to say I love Mahomes because Allen's right under him. We're going to talk about him in a second, but I still think he's QB1 this week. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. It might be a nice pivot to go to Mahomes and GPPs.
Certainly. The one thing that sticks out to me right away from this price tag for everybody here is that they dropped the entire section of quarterbacks down several $100s. Last week we were talking about Kyler being at 87, Mahomes was 85. I believe that Allen was obviously in the 7,000s, but we had Lamar there at 82 as well. So they've dropped all these guys down almost an entire $500 or more, and that is going to help the rest of roster construction immensely because we also talked about, and we'll get there, but there are a lot of guys that you can pay up for this week. For me, it's Josh Allen at 8K. He'll actually tell me on DraftKings where he was last week in terms of pricing. He was 7,000 last week, so he jumped up an entire grand. The sites, if he would have played in the afternoon, we would have got a cheaper price tag on him. But unfortunately, he played in the noon game last week, which means that he got the price bump. So Josh Allen came back in full force last week, threw the ball 43 times, was actually pretty consistent with that. The highest percentage he's had, completion percentage he's had all season. Almost threw for 400 yards, so did get that 300 plus bonus on DraftKings. Also scored a rushing touchdown too, unlocking his ceiling of 40 plus FanDuel or DraftKings points. So very, very good day for Josh Allen. This team's not going to rely on their running backs, and they do play Houston. Again, we talked about it yesterday. Not going to get too far into it again. If you want to get into that, go look at the YouTube video from yesterday at RotoRadar Daily Fantasy Sports. Josh Allen doesn't need, I understand that the blowout is a concern for some people. It's not a concern for me or Josh. So we're fine with them being up 20 plus points and Josh Allen still throwing the ball. So no issues with that there. Josh, anybody else at the top from 7K to 8K that you want to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. Man, you just missed my mark. So I'm going to talk about him anyway because he's at six
Okay,
nine.
go
It
ahead.
surprised me where Jalen Hurts is in this list because here he's QB 4, 5, 6, 7, and on FanDuel he's QB 5. So
Hmm.
I feel like you're getting a little bit of a savings on Hurts compared to what you get him on FanDuel. And I like the matchup for Hurts. I know garbage time kind of helped him out this week against Dallas. That's the reason that he did have those 20 plus FanDuel points. But I think against this KC defense, you're going to see quarterbacks who can run torch them all season long. So I continue to go back to Jalen Hurts, but I think this spot is no different. The guy does have a good amount of rushing attempts, 7 in week 1, 10 in week 2, and then 9 in week 3. I think you can probably expect 8+ almost every game this season. And if that's the case, that's a good solid rushing floor. So I like the Jalen Hurts play.
Yeah, I like it too. And the fact that he was able to give you that 300-yard bonus was something I was looking to see. I know that you actually called that on the morning stream yesterday for him throwing over 300 yards. So kudos to you on that one. The rushing attempts were great. The rushing yards, however, were not. So even with him having as bad of a game as he did, if you guys watched that game yesterday, you would not have thought that he would have gotten 25 DraftKings points. So and his ability to do that, that just makes him one of the best and most elite quarterbacks in the league in terms of fantasy production. So Jalen's not going to run 9 times very often and only get 35 yards. I love the play this week against Kansas City. I think he's an elite tournament option, if not even in cash consideration. Josh, I'm getting a lot of getting some huge props here to Modelo, as they are the ad right below it, Jalen Hurts. And so apparently they're
Fight of the fighters drink.
Yeah.
Sponsor for UFC, and I guess kind of sponsor for DraftKings, or sponsors for us.
Apparently they want me to go and buy some Modelo after this, so maybe we'll do that.
Hey, maybe that's the move.
Yep, Paco says he also gets those rushing yards and TDs. Correct, absolutely. So he didn't get in the end zone through the ground last week, but he always has that upside as well. Let's talk about guys now under 7K. We have Rodgers against Pittsburgh, who I have not looked at the Bet Online spread for that yet, but I saw some people saying that could be a blowout. I'm not personally interested in that play for tournaments. Maybe down the road, and I'll put it in like some MME stuff that I'm going to do. Down here, though, I'm not usually interested in many quarterbacks. One that does stand out is Sam Darnold at 6,000 even. I think that you can go back to Sam Darnold this week in a spot where, again, he's had several games in a row now with extreme. He's just looked really good. Now, I wish the completion percentage was a little bit higher, but he's had back-to-back games now with over 300 yards passing, and he did have 2 touchdowns on the ground last week, and one of them was when Christian McCaffrey was on the field. So the fact that Darnold does have the ability to possibly get up to 30 DraftKings points is definitely intriguing at 6K. And we should expect them to either be in sort of a shootout with Dallas or at least have to throw to keep up with Dallas. I like Darnold at 6K to start things off. Not a cash game play, but definitely in play for tournaments.
Yeah, certainly in play. I mean, we saw the potential that he does have. When Christian McCaffrey left the game, we saw him take 2 rushing touchdowns away. So, like, if he's able to have that, I'm not going to say rushing floor. I don't think there's any floor necessarily with Darnold, but I do think that there's upside there. If he can get into the end zone rushing wise and throw a few passes to DJ Moore, he's going to be in a good spot. So I can get behind the Darnold play. This 6K range is ugly. Honestly, like, last week, it was like I could get behind so many 6K players. I could get behind so many guys in this range. But like this week, I don't like really anything outside of maybe that Darnold play. But I feel like, Darnold play is okay. It's not great. But I feel like I'm going to go against every guy here. Rodgers is a very meh play. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't really know. I mean, I know what the ceiling is, but don't know what it is against that Pittsburgh team.
Mm-hmm.
Dak against Carolina. I'm going to take the wait and see approach. I still believe in that Carolina defense. Kirk Cousins against Cleveland. We just saw what they did to freaking Fields. Who knows what they're going to be able to do to Kirk Cousins
Good point.
in this matchup. Tannehill against the Jets. Maybe. I still haven't seen exactly what I want from Tannehill. He threw 2 picks last week. I'd like to see a little bit better from him, but I feel like he's probably the second guy that's in play in this range.
Yeah.
And then Baker Mayfield. No, I don't play Mayfield ever. So, like, just not a lot of guys in play in this range.
No, there aren't. And you don't really want Daniel Jones against New Orleans either. So it kind of, I mean, Jameis Winston's in play here at 5,600. I could get behind that in tournaments only, not cash. And then it's kind of just gross, right? Like Garoppolo against Seattle is an interesting environment. But, they're going to obviously be a run-heavy team. Big Ben, no thanks. Carson Wentz, no thanks. By the way, Matt Ryan and Ben Roethlisberger both just fell off a cliff the last 2 years, if not this year specifically. So down the line, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, we don't know who's going to be the quarterback for this team against Detroit. I do have some interest in some Chicago players, but again, we have no idea who the quarterback's going to be, so I can't make any definitive decisions until we know what that is. And I mean, I'm not doing it, but Zach Wilson is going up against Tennessee, but he hasn't scored more than 10 DraftKings points in a game yet. So I'm not interested in anything down here. It seems pretty clear cut for quarterback. If you want to get different this week, I think the best pivot, like you said, is going up to a guy like Pat Mahomes, or possibly, this is scary, but Kyler Murray could scramble a lot with the amount of pressure he'll be under this week.
I also think that in this lower range, there's one more guy in play,
Okay.
and it is Taylor Heinecke. I think Heinecke at this price tag of 5,900 against Atlanta, we've seen back-to-back weeks where he's had 20 plus DraftKings points. That's almost 5xing his price tag. So you're paying off this price tag pretty easily. He has the ability to run on the ground. He has the ability to rush in touchdowns. I don't know if he'll throw that much. I mean, like we only saw 24 passing attempts against Buffalo, right? But this is a good matchup for Heineke, so I can at least get behind him.
I can get behind this because we've seen that he does have the ability to throw the ball more than 30 times and get that DraftKings bonus over 300 yards. He did get a touchdown on the ground last week. I'm not expecting 8 rushing attempts for Heineke. I'm also not expecting Atlanta to pressure the quarterback enough for him to do that. But I do think that he has the ability to put up 20 plus again in this spot. So don't mind the play there. Again, I normally would like to have, at least for cash and for tournaments, both. Like this applies to both stances. You want guys that can unlock 25 to 30 point ceilings at these price tags, and then for the top tier guys, you want them to have that upside of 30 to 35, even with like a Josh Allen who can get 40. We all know that Mahomes, Allen, Murray, Jackson, those guys can get 40 in their sleep. Just needs to have the right game environment to do so. Heineke has been doing all right. Terry should be a good play. We'll talk about Terry here in a bit. Cleveland D has a lot of talent. Yep, definitely saw that coming. They are very talented front seven. We'll see what they do here in this spot this week against Minnesota. Let's move on, Josh, to the running back position because we have some guys to talk about here. Derrick Henry, 8,800, where he is 10K on DraftKings. So, kind of seems like a discounted spot for Henry here.
Yeah, it does. I would expect him to be over 9K in all honesty, and we have him at 10K on FanDuel. So, like, this does feel like a discounted price tag. This is an amazing spot against the Jets. A lot of people will probably say that he didn't have a good performance in week 3. I would disagree. If you watch the film, he had a very good game. He just didn't get into the end zone. So it
Yep.
is what it is. I think that you see positive regression here against the Jets. This is a Jets team that hasn't won yet. This is a Tennessee that should be looking to control the clock throughout the game, and the best way to do that is with Derrick Henry. So I think Henry's a surefire, lock and load, fire him up type of guy for 1 p.m. only, and probably for the main slate as well.
Yep, absolutely. Desert Zombie says unfadable Henry. I certainly agree with that take as of today. Now, things can change over the course of the week, but as of today, if this game was happening this evening, Derrick Henry is unfadable at this price tag against this team. 30, 30 touches in back-to-back games, almost 30 rushing attempts in back-to-back games too. And the thing for me on DraftKings that always trumps FanDuel is the ability to get the 100-yard bonus. Now, he didn't even have to get in the end zone, and he hit 2.2x his value on DraftKings last week at 8,600. That was against a respectable Indy Colts rush defense. So if you're telling me he's getting the Jets now, man, just fire him up. I have no problems with this. I think that even with the additional, it's the cherry on top that he gets the 3 targets minimum now over the last 3 weeks. I saw a couple screen passes that went for double-digit yardage too over the past 2 weeks, and I'm very excited that they're rolling that out in their playbook. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about Derrick Henry. Normally, the one bad thing I could say would be price tag, but again, no worries here. 8,800 is too cheap. He should be 10,800 on DraftKings this week.
And he'll probably get more passes his way, considering that A.J. Brown could be out for this game.
Mm-hmm.
If Brown is out for this game, then you'll see him and Jeremy McNichols probably used a lot in the passing game.
100% agree with that. Yep. Okay. So let's move on here. Let's talk about Alvin Kamara going up against the Giants. Any other? Obviously, we have to wait on Dalvin Cook news. but anything up in this above 7K range.
Yeah, I like Kamara here. I think he's in a good spot. Um, Outside of him, though, those are the only guys I'm considering above 7K. I'm considering Henry, considering Kamara, and that's it. Probably not going to go to Jones against that elite front seven, and just probably don't want to play Chubb this week because limited upside. So I want to talk about a guy at 6,800 that is going to be very, very interesting to talk about.
Yeah, let's just talk about him right now. I will say before we do that, that it might be difficult to try to jam Henry and Kamara into your lineups along with the Josh Allen, but you should probably find a way to do it. And I think that there could be enough value for this slate as it shapes out today that might get you there.
Or maybe you don't use Josh Allen in that build. Maybe you use the Taylor Heinecke who gets you some savings.
There you go. All right, the floor is yours. Let's talk about Najee Harris.
Yeah, Najee Harris, insane workload in week 1 where he had 19 targets with 14 receptions. It's going to be interesting to see where the news plays out for Deontay Johnson. Is he going to be in this game? Is he going to be out this game? If he is out, I know it's Green Bay and it's hard to target against Green Bay sometimes, but this feels like a spot that Najee Harris could absolutely blow up and continue to get that ridiculous target share. So we're talking about 3 high-priced running backs now, which makes things really difficult. What do you think?
We have not had the run all over Green Bay game yet. This feels like it has the potential to be that a little bit. However, I think we can count on Najee Harris regardless of that script or not. With Deontay Johnson out, it will be a different scenario if he's in, so that we need to pay attention to. Him and Chase Claypool absorbed all of the targets, and man, I don't even know the last time a running back got 19 targets, Josh. Like, first Darren Waller, now Najee Harris. Like, what's going on here? Like, 2 guys almost getting 20 targets in a game. I don't get it. But we now know that Najee Harris has the elite pass work upside, even though we had seen signs of it through college and in training camp. So we now know that he has the ability to get a 30-point ceiling. And still, I mean, the rushing touches, they were playing from behind, so I understand that. But 14 is still decent. Now 14 receptions is another level. Like, if any, I don't know, maybe we're overreacting a tiny bit, and this is like the highest variance point of what he's going to do this season. But if, all the signs that Mike Tomlin and all the beat writers and everything just accumulated to this point in this game and showed exactly what we were trying to say through the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is what we had in mind in week 1 and 2 when we rostered him. We had in mind that not exactly the target thing necessarily, but just that he was going to be so involved in this offense that It was just almost an unfadeable spot. And we finally got it in week 3. Of course, that's how DFS works, right, Jared? So It is what it is. I think that he's an amazing play. You have to take, if you had to decide today, is it Najee Harris or is it Alvin Kamara?
I think I would side with Najee Harris because I do believe that there's a chance Deontay Johnson sits again. And if that's the case, I do think that they're going to be trailing against Green Bay, which would, I'm not expecting 19 targets. I'm not even expecting 9 targets. But I do think that the floor of around 5 to 7 targets gives him the ability to have 7 to 9, 7 to 10 DraftKings points on the ground or through the air. So if that's the case and he gets the workload he gets on the ground, I still think that he is a clear path to value this week.
Yep, I would agree with that he is a clear path to value. Let's keep going down here. Anyone else that you're interested in this running back range?
That's nothing really that stands out off the page. Nick Chubb is a very good price tag at 7K, although we don't really like to target him on DraftKings. I'm not touching Saquon against New Orleans. Madison, we have to do a wait and see approach, and even if we go there, it's a tough matchup. So that'll have to be, if I'm going Madison or Najee Harris, even with Dalvin Cook out, it's going to be Najee Harris for me, at least on Tuesday. And then we saw a bounce back spot from Ezekiel Elliott last night, but tough matchup against Carolina. Carolina used to be a team we used to smash and stream running back plays on all the time. So the fact that that's not a thing anymore is kind of interesting. Now let's talk about these Colts running backs. So Jonathan Taylor, Naeem Hines. Taylor, 6,300 on DraftKings, and I know that you had that price tag up there before. It's like the high fours.
Yeah, far high fours. I think it's at 4,700 for Naeem Hines.
Yep, here it is. 4,900 for Hines, 63 for Taylor. What are we doing with this spot?
Yeah, I don't know quite yet. I think that it is kind of an interesting spot. Are we talking about Hines or are we talking about Jonathan
Well,
Taylor?
both, because I feel like
Oh, yeah.
tournaments I kind of lean Taylor actually, but I
Really?
wouldn't be playing him in cash games because I just don't know what the workload looks like. But I'm going to assume that they're playing from ahead, and they're not going to need Hines as much outside like when they were trailing yesterday, 2 days ago.
For sure. I just know that Hines is still getting that workload in the running game too, right? Like he's had 16 total carries throughout the season. He's had 15 total carries when Marlon Mack doesn't play. So
Mm-hmm.
15 total carries, divide that by 2, you could probably expect 7 carries. Then you expect some work in the passing game. You have a route to 10 plus touches, and while that doesn't sound like a lot, Hines is a very talented running back, and he got paid as a very talented running back. He can do a lot with those 10 plus touches at this price tag of 4,900. So I mean, like it's GPP for sure, but I don't mind the Hines play whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely going to be in my player pool for sure. Let's move down. Let's talk about a few other plays here. We have David Montgomery against Detroit. Obviously, we talked about David Montgomery yesterday, so I won't get too far into that. The price tag is just really good. And again, it depends on the quarterback play and who's going to be back there for them to go that route. Tony Pollard, also interesting. His price tag is very, very close to Zeke now. I won't be touching that, and only in tournaments. Um, do we dare talk about Clyde again and try to get that one wrong or right? I don't know.
You know,
5,400. He bumped up in price tag. I just this doesn't seem like the greatest play, even though we did see that the Cowboys do whatever they wanted to do last night on the ground. But the Chiefs are just a different kind of team. They're not going to run the ball relentlessly. So for me, I think that Clyde had a good game. I'm going to call it at that, and I'm not going to talk about it this week because I don't want to be on the wrong side of it. There are just better running back plays, point per dollar.
for sure. There definitely are better running backs plays points per dollar. So might as well just go elsewhere and call it a day and not try to jinx ourselves again.
Speaking of guys, better points per dollar plays, do we think that Chuba Hubbard is a better point per dollar play at 5,900 than Clyde Edwards-Helaire is?
I don't know, man. That's an expensive price
It's
tag for
expensive.
Chuba here.
Yep. I
He's
think
at
it's more of
15.
a
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's definitely more of a FanDuel play, guys, this week.
Yeah, definitely more of a FanDuel play. Yeah, I'm not going to Chuba this week. I'm not doing it. You can't make me.
5,900. I mean, he did get I don't know. He got 14 touches in a half. So can you guarantee that he's going to get 25 touches? No, absolutely not. But interesting play. I'll just say it at that. I'm not locking myself into anything. He got an $1,100 bump because this game happened on a Thursday night, whereas if it would have happened on Sunday, he probably would have been min price. So, Chuba, to be determined. All right,
Yeah, to be determined indeed.
yeah, let's continue. I don't know if we necessarily have to go any farther down here. I don't see anything that I like, so if you don't, we should probably just move on.
Yep, let's keep moving on.
All right. Wide receiver this week's going to be really important. Have a lot of guys that are on the cheaper side of things. Again, I feel like DraftKings just didn't price people up this week. You saw it with Derrick Henry. You saw it
Yeah.
with the quarterbacks. Now we see that Tyreek Hill is the only guy that's above 8K. And we had really good performances from Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp last week. Tyreek Hill kind of shit the bed, but he does get the Eagles again this week. Cooper Kupp, his price tag, if I believe I'm correct, did not move from last week to this week. No, he actually, sorry, it jumped up with $1,000. I don't know what I was thinking. He was 7,900 on FanDuel. That's why I thought that. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Cooper Kupp, 7,800. Possibly the best wide receiver in the league through 3 weeks. I think that's actually not even possibly, it is a thing. I think he is the best in terms of statistics. Yeah, going up against Arizona, I feel like he'd be the guy that would draw some Patrick. No, sorry, Patrick Peterson's not even there anymore. So good
Nope.
luck trying to defend Cooper Kupp. I think that The chemistry in this spot is just too good, and people are saying, "Oh, Robert Woods," but Cooper Kupp's the clear guy here. Like he has 30 targets over 3 weeks, and he's averaging about 32 FanDuel or DraftKings points per game. It's just I can't find a reason to fade him in cash until we see something else.
Yeah, I completely agree. And honestly, this feels a little bit like a discounted spot because you have Hill and Adams ahead of him on DraftKings. Meanwhile, on FanDuel, you have Cup ahead of Hill and Adams. So
Hmm.
like you get getting him as a wide receiver 3 on this site seems really kind of just dirty and wrong. He should definitely be the wide receiver 1. When you look at the stats that he's had throughout the first 3 weeks, he's been absolutely incredible. And yeah, there's a reason he's the wide receiver 1 and the wide receiver 1 by $400 on FanDuel because he's that guy. And
Yep.
for some reason, DraftKings seems to be undervaluing him. So I'm going to eat it up. I'm going to be taking Cooper Cup this week. I know that for sure.
Yep. I brought his name back up here to say and look to see. He only missed the 100-yard bonus by 4 points or by 4 yards yesterday. So if he would have had that, he would have had a 33 DraftKings point day. Still, obviously, 30 is nothing to sneeze at. Uh, you're jumping for joy every single week of Cubs play so far. So I think that he goes back to get another double-digit target game. Should be a very, very interesting game from a NFC West standpoint. I do think that the Rams have the clear, they have the clear path to victory here. But with the injury to Darrell Henderson, we saw that Matthew Stafford had to throw more than he normally would, and Cup is the direct beneficiary of that. I think he's again going to be in play until he isn't, which probably is never this year. So let's move forward and talk about guys lower than 7,800. Lots of, I know Diggs is there. Don't look at the opponent ranking for Diggs. Houston's definitely not the ninth rated against the wide receiver position. So I think you can get behind some Diggs at the moment. Josh, if you have Josh Allen at quarterback, would you go Diggs or Cup?
I'd probably go Cup because I know I can pair Allen with another one of those wide receivers, whether that be Emmanuel Sanders. Never mind. Well, no, Cole Beasley is definitely in play.
Beasley's definitely in play. Yep.
Cole is always in play just because he gets all those receptions on DK. He had 20 points last week. That's because he didn't. I mean, he did. He had 98 yards, but he didn't get a touchdown because he had 11 receptions for 13 targets. So
Mm-hmm.
still absolutely smashed on that slate. I'd rather go to Cole Beasley than to play Diggs, and
Yep.
I'd rather get Cup in my lineup. So I'd go Cup if I had
Yeah.
to choose between the two.
DraftKings is a different game, guys. You got to play into the bonuses. You got to play into the reception numbers. All of that makes a lot of sense. And if you can squeeze that and get those guys that get 100-yard upside, that's some of the reason that a lot of us won last week. So, yeah, I mean, you have to just kind of play into that and into your strategies, and it's much more important on DraftKings than it is FanDuel. I'm not seeing a lot that I like in this range for cash. Tournaments, obviously, Metcalf and Lockett are fine. Ridley against Washington's great. McLaurin at 6'9" is super cheap. So we talked about him yesterday. We both like his spot for Terry. And then Minnesota, the way that you beat Cleveland is definitely through the air. So, I mean, I can get behind both Jefferson and Thielen, too. I know that you said you were going to take a wait and see approach on the Dallas receivers. Is that still the case here?
Yeah, I think so. I believe in Carolina. I believe in that defense at least for right now. So going to continue believing in that defense and going to take a wait and see approach.
Yeah, seeing that CD Lamb is sitting here at 67. Amari Cooper dropped all the way down to 6K after two bummer performances in a row. Played at home last week, Josh, and still didn't do great. So the best game that he's had on the year is actually on the road. So very interesting split for Amari Cooper to start the year off. We'll see how that goes now. So I mean, the guy that from all the way from Cup to DJ Moore is kind of where the next guy that I'm looking at targeting. I like DJ Moore's spot against Dallas a lot. He's been the guy, and with no CMC, I expect a lot more targets going his way. Anybody besides Moore that you want to talk about? Otherwise, we'll jump kind of down to the Denver Bronco wide receiver range as well as the Buffalo receivers.
Yeah, Chase Claypool at this price tag of 6,100 is in play if Deontay Johnson is out. Got 15 targets last week for 9 receptions. We talked about it yesterday. Shouldn't get the Jair Alexander cover. He should end up getting I don't know, either your rookie in Stokes or potentially maybe King if King is back. But I don't think he's going to get the cover from Alexander, which is a good thing because Alexander's an elite corner. So if we see Deontay Johnson out again, then Claypool will be that target hog, just like he was last week. And if he gets you 9 receptions for almost 100 yards, you're pretty happy at this price tag. So I really do like the Claypool play.
Yep, very solid price tag. We're always looking for guys that are target monsters in that 58 to 64 range on DraftKings, and he definitely fits the mold of that, especially with the game script that is planned out there. Down the list, Cortland Sutton's in play for Denver, and honestly, there's not much else. I like Cole Beasley a lot at 5'4". I think he's a fantastic option if you want to pay for Cup and fade Diggs. I love that spot for Cole Beasley. Robert Woods continues to not do much, and his price tag remains cheap. Any interest in a guy like him or maybe one of these Arizona receivers?
Um, I don't mind Christian Kirk. I don't think that's a terrible option, especially considering he had 8 targets in his past matchup. And I feel like Hopkins is going to take off most of the pressure from him. So Kirk at this price tag, definitely in play for me. I also do like Sanders at 4,900. I know I'm kind of skipping over everyone else in the 5K range, but Sanders at 4.9. He's been every down receiver. He had 2 touchdowns last week. He's had 6 targets or more in each of his 3 games. I think that Sanders is definitely in play if you are targeting or if you have Allen in your lineup as well.
Yeah, not a bad start to the season for Sanders. This is the first time that he's gotten into the end zone, but the targets have been there, and that's the most important thing in this offense. I was worried about him getting separation this year, and just because of how I wouldn't say he's washed up. I would just say that there are definitely defenders that are faster than him and can close on routes a lot faster. So it's encouraging that Sanders is there, so I definitely don't mind that. I think that you're going to see him and Cole Beasley be quite popular this week. Tim Patrick, another guy that falls in that range at 4,900 with the loss of KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy this week. I don't mind him as well. And then maybe I could get some shares in with Rondale Moore for tournaments. Outside of that, not too interested in anything else. We can talk about AJ Green for a second. He leads the league in end zone targets, so I mean, maybe that comes into play here, but I'm probably going to end up going elsewhere if I have to pick a Cardinals wide receiver. Anything else down at the bottom range in the dumpster diving list for the wide receiver position?
Yeah, dumpster diving is incredibly ugly this week. I've been kind of side working this whole entire time we've been doing the first look stuff on trying to find a way to get those 3 running backs that we talked about
Yep.
in Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, and Najee Harris, having Josh Allen in the lineup, and then figuring out who the rest of the build would be. I
Right.
ended up landing on the Cowboy or not the Cowboys defense. I landed on the Eagles defense, hoping that they can get some turnovers against the Chiefs because we saw how turnover happy that team was last week. Then I went Pat Fryermuth at tight end, which is extremely ugly. And even after all of that, wide receiver is incredibly tough. There's not those usual pay down guys that I usually love.
Yep.
So like those guys that will get you 5+ targets and have a chance at paying off this cheap price tag. They're just not down here this week. Like I think Terrence Marshall is okay at 4K. We did see him get a little bit more work without CMC, but not enough that I'm jumping for joy at playing him. Like there's just not a lot to love down here. So I'm curious to see, or I'm curious to hear. Is there anyone that you like down in this range?
No, not really. I think that you can look at a guy like Anthony Miller if you think that all the Houston receivers are going to be out like they were last week. We did see Miller jump into that role as the wide receiver too. Not much going on here though. 6 targets, only got 20 yards, and that has a lot to do with Davis Mills. But he did get the touchdown. So again, that's just a dart throw. I'm not too confident with really anything here. Quez Watkins is another dart throw, but again, none of these are cash game options, so I don't think anything necessarily stands out. But Josh, staring us right in the face, if this happens, if Slayton and Shepard are both out, Kadarius Toney's 3,300.
Don't even say it. Don't even fucking say it, Jared. Don't get my hopes up about Kadarius Toney, man. Don't do it to me. Yeah, I saw it, but considering that Garrett didn't play him last week, I don't know how much Garrett would play him this week. I guess if we do get news that he's in play, then he's a guy that I would definitely be willing to go to because I believe in the skill set. I think he is NFL level, but yeah, I don't know. It's just going to be a wait and see approach because Jason Garrett's a fucking idiot.
Yep, agreed. KJ Osborne would really be the only other guy that I want to look at in this range, but he had a down week last week. Starting to kind of come back into the fold here as the wide receiver 3 and kind of come down to earth. Yeah, I mean, Tony's the only guy that I really think stands out under 4,000. So we'll see what the news is for the rest of the week on that, as that could be a potential option, but again, very, very risky option. Let's move on to tight end here and start talking about these guys. We are another conversation of paying up at a position. So Travis Kelce, 8K or 8,100 in a really good spot against the Philly defense. So we saw Dalton Schultz score 2 touchdowns last night. Schultz is a different animal, or sorry, Kelce is a different animal than Schultz in that he's a matchup proof at this point. So yeah, how are you going to fit in? There's just no way that you can fit in Kelce with Kupp, Henry, and Josh Allen. You just can't do it.
Yeah, you absolutely can't do it. So you got to make a decision somewhere. I'm kind of willing a little bit more to sacrifice on the tight end position than I am elsewhere. Just because you have those guys at 5K that I think could be in play. I like Andrews here. I think that Hawkinson's going to be in play. I think Logan Thomas is a guy that I can certainly get behind, and Dallas Goedert as well. Another guy that I can potentially get behind. I like this tight end range more than I like probably most other positions on this slate. I mean, wide receiver feels really top heavy. Running back feels really top heavy. Quarterback feels really top heavy. Tight end might be a place where you can save some money.
Cardina says that I said it right the first time. Schultz over Kelce. Yeah, I will stop
Yeah.
myself right there. At least week 3 that he outscored him in week 3. That's nice. Noah Fant sitting here at 4,300 is the clear cash game option against Baltimore. That defense, it's more about opportunity than anything else. Didn't have to throw the ball in week 3 against the Jets. We'll have to throw the ball here against this Baltimore defense. With KJ Hamler out, I expect Fant to be a guy that can get 6 to 8 targets, and I do think he has tremendous touchdown upside. So Fant definitely in play at 4,300. I like the guys that you talked about as well. Logan Thomas, Dallas Goedert, we saw last week. And yeah, I think you could look at Zach Ertz at 3,500 if you really wanted to, but I think that Dawson Knox is probably a better play at 3,600. Anybody else that you see down here, Josh?
I do like Fryermuth at 3,100. I know I'm going down a lot, but his targets have been slowly going up each week. I think if Deontay Johnson is still out, you'll continue to see those targets go up. And I don't know, he was the tight end in this class behind Pitts. I think he's done better than Pitts already. Pitts really hasn't done that much, and that's more based on that Atlanta team than it is actually based on Kyle Pitts. But I like Fryermuth. I think that he is going to be someone who factors in at this level as a rookie right now. And I don't know, this seems like some savings.
It does. Also, RIP Dan Arnold shares. There's actually a thing on the screen that says he won't receive any fantasy points, and he's down in this range. Cole Kmet against Detroit is interesting as long as we get a good quarterback in there. Max Williams against the Rams is interesting too. Goosty, what's up, dude? Thank you for the tier 1 sub, sir, to Tomcat2KO. Appreciate you, as always. If you want some savings, play Lancey Vulture's touchdowns. Yeah, I mean, he definitely does. Yeah, and I'm not seeing anything else down here that really gets me going too much. Alberto at 2,600 is interesting, but I don't want to count on that for cash. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the tight end position. Let's talk about defense here. And at the top is the Bills, no surprise. Way too expensive for DraftKings. And Titans, also way too expensive for DraftKings. Yeah, we're going to probably have to end up dumpster diving this week. I know that we played a mixture of teams, whether it have been the Browns, the Raiders, or even the Bengals that kind of actually went off last week. So what are you looking at when you're dumpster diving for the defense position?
Yeah, I think it's the Eagles, honestly, this week at 2,100. Now, I know this is a scary spot, taking a defense against the Chiefs, but we saw the Chiefs throw 3 turnovers in the first quarter. Not, I think it was the first half last week that they threw those 3 turnovers. And if that's the case, then you could see this Philly team. All you need is positive points when your defense is this low, right? So that's all you need from them. I think they could get positive points here, and I think they are in play.
If I were to dumpster dive, I would select the Detroit Lions this week against Chicago. Whether it be Justin Fields or Andy Dalton or even Nick Foles, I can get behind some Detroit upside for the amount of mistakes that were made last week. I know that the Browns are better than all of those teams, but yeah, give me the Lions at 2,200.
I can get behind it. Solid team.
There's a comment about Jets interceptions. I mean, Tennessee, you have to pay a pretty penny for them. I don't like paying above 3,200 for a defense, maybe even 3K. And there's a lot of teams that are above 3K this week. So yeah, give me the Lions. I can get behind the Eagles too. I can't really get behind anything else though. That's kind of where
Yeah.
that love stops. So I think it's going to be another pay down week at defense, and those two are definitely solid spots to do so. Maybe you can get some Saints love, but again, they're priced up at 3,800, so no thanks. All right,